fulfil. We're on the internet.
We're on the internet.
What is internet?
We're not that kind of podcast. But today, we're also not a Sims podcast. Not right now, anyway.
Not even a video game podcast.
Okay, fun insight to us. We were originally going to talk about World of Warcraft because the new expansion came out, and us three I've been playing a lot because it's really good. But we also collectively talked about it and realized our fans might not play World of Warcraft, and maybe they might not be as interested in us talking about World of Warcraft as we would be to talk about it. So we switched gears to living our podcast dreams of what if we did some not game type topics. So we bring you unsolved mysteries and weird oddities.
Yeah.
Woo!
Because, fun fact about us, we all got together to start this podcast because we met on a true crime / Sims Facebook group. So we're all true crime fans, and we figured, you know what, maybe we want to live our best true crime podcaster lives just this once. It's 2020. Let's do what makes us happy, and murder makes us happy.
Let's end this on a great note.
I was talking to two of our Patreons during our book club the other day, and I found out both of them started listening to podcasts because of us. To me, it's mind-blowing.
Are we influencers?
Wow.
Oh my god.
We are a gateway drug to what is podcasting. So,
oh my god.
Do they need recommendations? Because boy howdy do I have a ton.
So I feel if once we finish one of our unsolved mysteries or stories that we can bring up, each of us can talk about maybe a podcast that had an episode on this topic, because mine definitely has there's multiple podcasting places that have an episode on this.
One that I know of, but it's also my favorite, so it's fine. We can definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's like they're the normal, that we are one of the few we brought them into podcasting, but this is for you guys. And also,
God, that is so cool. I'm legit tickled with this. This is amazing.
I feel like an influencer. Watch me do
watch me work.
Yes. What's it called? Like when you do paid content. Watch me do ads and paid content because I'm so popular.
Casper, send me a mattress.
Yeah, please.
Yes. I also
or purple,
had
whatever that one is.
What's that? Is that a mattress?
Purple mattress. I think I heard about it. There's a podcast called Sleepy where he reads you a story for bedtime, and I think a purple mattress is what gives him money.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to read people's stories, bedtime stories. I bet I could do that.
Very nice. You did read Alice in Wonderland for me during baby quarantine.
I did do that. And then the reality of the plague hit, and I just didn't have any motivation to do anything anymore. So.
It's okay. We're here to do something, though. Talk about stuff.
Caitlin is going to start it off with her favorite.
Which is also a favorite for all of us, I think.
I fought Ava. I was like, can I do this one, please?
Yeah, because I originally called it first, but then I was just like, there's also another one that I really want to do. So it's like, yeah, it's fine, you can have it. Because when you say unsolved mysteries, you think of
the Die to Love Pass incident. The place, Russian wilderness. The time, late 1950s, early in the year of 1959. Are you ready to go back? Get in the Wayback Machine, get in your TARDIS.
1959?
Still the USSR, no?
It was the Soviet Union, Russia.
Yeah, so yikes, Russia.
Yeah.
What was the best time?
Also, Russia's just so weird. It's like the Florida of the world. The weirdest shit just happens in Russia like all the time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It's just so cold. I think it's just so cold that
you get a little crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, and it's a little disconnected from everything else. I don't know. It's just a weird place that I love to look up stuff because it's weird. Okay. But originally it's 10 hikers originally 10 hikers, all experienced because they're all young, but they're experienced. Because when you hear like, oh, a bunch of 20-something, young 20-somethings went out into the woods and got lost, your initial reaction is be like, these dumb fucks. But that's not the case. They were all, because they're like, one of them was 38, but the rest of them, the oldest was 24. But they were experienced.
But weren't they going for their like final qualification on like the highest climbing qualification that they were going to do?
Yes, because they were all grade 2 hikers, and if they had come back from this, spoiler alert, they would have become grade 3 after they returned, which is the highest certification available at the Soviet Union at the time. So they knew what they were doing. And the route they were going down was approved by the City Route Commission. And also the day before, I wrote down the names of all these people, but they're so Russian that I might have some issues. So I'm very sorry.
Can you send them to me? I want to try.
Okay. So one of them I can pronounce is Igor Dyatlov. I can do that one. I'll send it on Discord. 1 second.
Igor?
Igor?
How do you say it?
Igor. Yeah, would have been Igor.
Oh, so sexy with Russian. Please, all Russians, contact me to read me sexual stuff.
Yuri, there's like 3 Yuris too. Yuri Doroshenko?
Yeah.
Ludmila Dubinianya?
I think that
Ludmila?
would be Ludmila,
yeah.
Dubinina?
This one's also Yuri Krivonchenko?
Krivonichenko?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Alexander Kolatov?
Yes.
Kolevatov?
This is going to be, you might be having to correct me for the names.
Zenaida Kolmogorova?
Kolmo?
Rustem Slobodin? Nikolya? No, that's Nikolya. And that's a French name. That's Thibaut Brignol.
Yeah, the X.
So he was
half. I was like, this has got to be a French. Yeah. And then another Yuri Yudin.
Yeah,
so,
Yuri Yudin, yeah.
I'm going to pronounce them wrong. So either Ava's going to have to interrupt me and pronounce them correctly, or just bear with me.
The podcast that I actually listened to, as like they said, we want to be respectful, but the names are very difficult and we don't want to butcher them, so we're just going to use hiker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh,
I didn't
know.
Number them.
In that case, good luck.
Yeah, I didn't do that, so I don't know what I can do.
You can number the Yuris, and then we'll just take it from there.
Yuri 1, 2, and 3.
Also, this is only for our beautiful patrons, and maybe they won't tell on us for being culturally insensitive, not pronouncing names.
If you give me like a second, I can try to number them, but I didn't do that. Like, Ava just brought that up, and I did not do that for me. So 1 second. Okay, so these, maybe while I'm doing this, I can try. So these, I don't want to call them kids, but they're all like 10 years younger than me. They go, and before they leave Dyatlov, he did agree to send a telegram to their sports club no later than February 12th. So there was a, like, okay, when we get there at this date, probably we'll send it. He thought maybe they might be a bit longer, but he gave the 12th. They left Vizhai, the last populated village to the north. They left there on January 27th. So they expected like this to take 2 weeks. On January 28th, Yuri Yudin turns back due to a knee injury and joint pain, and the 9 other hikers continue on their hike. Yuri is the only one to make it out of this alive. It's very fortunate for him that he had that joint pain and he was kind of sickly.
Yeah, they also said that they weren't, like in their diaries, they also mentioned that they weren't really sure why he came, because there was no way he ever would have been able to get to where they were going. Yeah. So, yeah, and I think he mentioned
he died in 2013.
Yeah, so he still lived a long life.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he also, I think he made like a foundation or something to honor them? Was it
there is a foundation for them, but I don't think he did it. I think it was somebody else.
That'll be my bad then. No, please continue.
Okay, so on the February 20th, the families of the hikers demand a rescue because at this point it's been a week. It's been over a week. Even if they expected it to take longer, they expected to come back by this point. They expected something. So the head of the institute that they were all kind of doing research for sent the first rescue group that was volunteer students and teachers. And then when nothing was found, the army became involved, and then helicopters and planes were looking for them. On February 26th, their tent is found. So this is pretty much a month later. They were able 2 weeks of searching. They found something, or a week of searching. So they found it abandoned and badly damaged on Kohat Salkal. Kohat. 1 second. I'm typing it in.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Ugh.
I think you're doing amazing.
Is it too late to go back to the World of Warcraft? Because then it's made up things I can't pronounce, and it's not insulting to anybody. I put it in the Discord. Is that Kohat?
I would say Kolat. No, I can't remember.
No.
It's Syahahl. L. Syahl.
Oof.
So, but I guess on some places it's like a dead area, which some people are like, oh, it's meant to be, but it's because there's nothing growing. There's no like livestock or anything in that area. That's why it's called the Dead Mountain. And Mikhail Sheravin found the tent, and he said, quote, "The tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty. All the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind," unquote. Investigators said the tent had been cut from the inside, and this isn't always answered a lot because, like, I don't, like, how do you tell that it's cut from the inside, not the outside? And I found somebody on Reddit who had the same question they were asking for the same reason. They were looking into this, and they're like, how the fuck did they know that this is from the inside? And somebody with the username 5 dozen whales answered their question, and they said, when you cut most materials like canvas, the tear is not symmetrical. The stitch of the fabric will be pushed inwards on the side of the knife, pushing from and pop outwards. The waterproofing may have also dissented it as well. So that's how, like, so it's kind of poking the right way for them to from the inside. After they found the tent,
I also have the pronunciation if you want it.
For the mountain area?
Apparently it's Kalitsiakil.
I wasn't gonna...
So it's like one word.
Why is there a K? Why is there a K?
Yeah, no, there is a K. It's spelled Syakhl.
Well, that was not in the place that I found it. They just left out a letter. So this isn't on me. This is from the place. This is on the Wikipedia page.
It's wrong.
Wikipedia
is wrong.
Well,
how dare.
I was set up to fail.
Yes, but you're also American.
I swear I had like 4 different websites too, and I did not see the K. It might be my dyslexia being like this. My hatred of the K and not people putting a K in my name might have eliminated it from my brain.
Yeah, that is possible.
Okay, so the people searching then found 9 sets of footprints can be followed leading to the edge of the nearby woods from the tent. From the other side of the pass. That's 1.5 kilometers. That's 0.93 miles away. The footprints left showed that some were wearing only socks, one had like a shoe on, and some were barefoot. And which kind of shows like they left in a hurry. Whatever, they cut their way out and they bamboozled, like they got themselves out of that area.
Because no one runs willingly out in snow with barefoot.
In the Russian wilderness.
Yeah. Except for Finns.
In February.
Right? No.
So, and then you can follow the tracks for about 500 more meters or 1,600 more feet. But then the tracks, then they're covered by snow. So it's clearly seen the footprints the entire way until about there. At the tree line, under a very large Siberian pine, they found the first 2 bodies, which is the Kirvinchenko and Doroshenko one. They're shoeless and dressed only in their underwear. Kirvinchenko.
That's also not what you do in the Russian wilderness in February.
No. So that's 2 and 4, I think, out of the names that got listed. So those were the first 2 bodies found. And then the branches on the tree were broken about 5 meters up, which also suggests that somebody climbed the tree and tried to look at something. They think the camp. Because you could kind of see the tent from the 5 meters up. And there were also remains of a small fire. And there were also burn marks on some of their hands. And then after the first 2 bodies were found, they searched around the remains, and they found 3 more hikers. So they found Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Solbodin. So
You're doing great, sweetie.
You're doing great.
Panic. This is just, I'm having flashbacks to the genetics episode where I'm like, oh God. I thought I know what I'm talking about. I just can't say the right things.
Just give me like 2 seconds. My cats have actually managed to open the drawer that contains their treats.
Are you kidding? They're evolving. They're evolving.
Shit goblins.
Can't turn my goddamn back on those cats for 5 minutes. Don't look at me like that. You know what you did. Sorry.
When cat people talk to their own cats, they're like verbally abusive almost, like, because they don't understand, and also they don't care. But when they're talking to other people's cats, it's, oh, sweet pumpkin.
Yeah. And here they are, shit goblins.
Mm-hmm. And the way that those 3 bodies were found suggests that they were kind of attempting to get back to the tent. And
were they also without clothes?
They were in various states of disarray.
Okay.
And they were found at 300 meters, 480 meters, and 630 meters from the tree back to the tent. So one of them kind of made it like halfway. And then it took 2 more months to find the remaining 4 hikers. They were found on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. They were found under 13 feet of snow in a ravine, 246 feet further into the woods from the large pine tree. And there were signs that those that had died first had their clothes taken by the other people. So, like, Durbinina was wearing Krovenshensky's burned, torn trousers, and her left foot and shin were wrapped in a torn jacket from one of the other people. So it's kind of like they were trying to, once one of them passed, they were using what they could to just survive.
Oh no! It's like
yeah.
That's just so horrible. Okay, continue with the horrendousness.
An investigation was launched like immediately as soon as they found the bodies. The medical examination found no injuries in the original 5 bodies found, so those are the ones in the ravine, not in the ravine. So the 2 guys near the tree and the 3 that were trying to make it back. It's concluded that they all died from hypothermia. Solbolden had a small crack in his skull, but it didn't really seem to be fatal. There's a thought that maybe he's the one who climbed the tree and he fell, but there's obviously no way to know that. The 4 bodies found in May, much weirder circumstances, and the main reason that this is kind of a bigger thing, 3 out of the 4 had fatal injuries. The one French guy
from falling. Sorry, I know you're gonna tell me. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Kind of like maybe like that's also kind of one of the weird things. Like the one the guy that had French in his name had major skull damage. Durbendina and Zolotaryov had it says cheek fractures. I don't know if that's right or if I autocorrected something.
Could be that their cheekbones were fractured.
Could be.
Did he get punched in the face?
That would suck. A cheek fracture. Okay. And their bodies had no external wounds, but they seemed to be subjected to high level pressure. The doctor said that it's almost the same. It's comparable to a car crash, pretty much. So something hit them as hard as a car, but didn't do anything else.
From what I gathered, the snow could not have caused that pressure because they were found under the snow, so the snow covered them afterwards.
Okay, continue. Sorry, I'm just gonna stop being like me watching a movie, asking all the questions. I'm so sorry.
All 4 bodies had soft tissue damage to their head and face. Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Zolotaryov is missing eyeballs.
Disgusting.
So Koletyov is missing his eyebrows. Like, that's a weird thing. Like, you shouldn't complain about that. I don't know. Like, the other people, come on, guys.
Mhm.
And these, like, there's a lot of questions brought up about these particular, but they were also found near a ravine, so near water, and it's a soft tissue. So they probably just deteriorated in the water. Like, that's not too big of a mystery for me. Like, I think that's easily explained by nature happened. And that those tend to be the first things to go anyway. Temperature during this time of the missing was negative 25 to negative 30 degrees Celsius, which is negative 13 to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was cold while they were gone.
As you would expect from Russian wilderness in February.
Journalists reporting on the available parts of the inquest files claim that it stated at the time 6 of the group members died of hypothermia and 3 to fatal injuries. There was no indication of other people nearby that area except for the 9 travelers, because they did some people tried to pin it on some of the indigenous people nearby, but like they couldn't have done this.
Oh, surprise.
Really? Yeah, I know.
Blaming it on the indigenous people.
The tent had been ripped from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal, so thankfully they were not in pain for long. That's also how fast you can die if not properly covered up in Russian woods in February. Traces from the camp showed that all the group members left the campsite on their own accord on foot, so they all booked it out of that tent. To dispel the theory of an attack by the indigenous Mansi people, Volsor Roshedeni, I think he was the one, he was doing the investigation, stated that the fatal injuries on the 3 bodies could not have been caused by human beings, quote, because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged, unquote. Release documents contained no information about the condition of the skiers' internal organs, and there were no survivors. In 1997, negatives from Krivenshansky's camera were kept by one of the investigators. So it was released that they kept them. They were donated and are now public domain. So you can go online and actually go look at the pictures of these kids, like, going on the trip, which are sad.
Be careful, because if you Google Diet Love Pass, you will get pictures of their dead bodies.
Yeah,
there will be crime scene photos.
Yeah.
So if you absolutely don't want to come across that, maybe don't Google it.
Don't Google the picture. If you don't want to see because you will see that. But also the journal entries are also released. That's how Ava knew what the journal entries said, is they were keeping journals, because they were all like, they all wanted to be scientists. They're all going to school for science, so they were keeping journals.
They were happy college kids going on a fucking mountain hike.
There was also drama because one of the girls and one of the guys had actually dated previously before the trip, and like there was journal entries of her being like, I don't know, like he's been fine so far, but it might be weird on the trip, like we'll see how it goes. Like she was writing a letter to a friend going, well, I hope it's not weird because we're going on this trip together. So yeah, it's just, like, I think the fact that they release stuff about like these kids were normal kids and they weren't stupid, and it caused kind of even more tragedy to the whole mystery of it.
Yeah,
there are multiple explanations for why this happened.
Theories.
I hope there is an alien theory, and
there is.
Nice.
There is. Do you want me to start weird, or do you want me to start normal? Do you want me to start
normal, build up weird?
Okay.
Yes.
So the official cause of death is an avalanche, which has actually been disproven on multiple counts, because where the mountainside that they were on, that I cannot pronounce because they were missing a letter, which is important, especially in Russian pronunciation.
Just say Dead Mountain.
The Dead Mountain. There was like no snow, like there wasn't enough snowfall to cause an avalanche, and it just doesn't. Avalanches, where they set up camp, they would not have been affected, really. And the fact that they found their tent there was like some snow on it, but not a lot of snow on it. They found their tent and could easily see footprints. Kind of if there was an avalanche,
that would be like swooshed away.
Yeah, they wouldn't have found that.
Yeah.
It is the official cause of death, but everybody kind of calls bullshit on it. And the group wouldn't have been able to run away from an avalanche. Like, the people wouldn't have made it to the ravine. There's no way. The theory that I've now moved to, because I have one of the bonkers theories that I subscribe to, but the theory that I now like after researching is the katabatic wind theory.
The hum!
Tell me about it.
That's my favorite.
Which I know because of I knew this term because of a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song about the Santa Ana winds, because that's also a katabatic wind. It means descending. It's also been called the gravity wind. It's a phenomenon, occurs over ice sheets or cooled mountain areas, including the area that the Dyatlov Pass is. The hurricane force wind can reach up to 81 meters per second and happen suddenly without warning like a storm. This phenomenon often occurs at night. In 2019, a Swedish adventuring group went with local guides and followed the same path the hikers at the same time of year. They experienced extreme and unpredictable changes in weather. They came up with the katabatic wind theory, and they have situational evidence that is as follows. After a
Look
tired
at
day,
us. Solving everything.
I was so
Except
excited.
Corona.
Yeah. It's not a high wind. We don't care about it.
If it's not something to do with fjords and mountains, why the fuck should we care?
So this is the theory that they've come up with like step by step. So after a tiring day of hiking, they pitched the tent, lol, with standing skis and was not angled and wasn't angled right. Like they think that maybe they didn't put the tent up exactly how they should have. A gale force wind swept down the mountain, threatening to rip apart the tent. They cut their way out of the tent for speed and shoveled snow on top of the tent to hold it down from the strong winds. That's why there was some snow on top. With their bare hands. They left a flashlight on top of their tent so they could find it afterwards. And they went down the slope to seek shelter in the trees and lower elevation from the winds. But they were buffeted by the strong wind debris, so all the snow being blown around. The 3 found on the slope died where they fell descending. So they think that instead of them coming back, they might have been on their way out and the winds got them. And then the 2, and Doroshenko, a notoriously brave man, and so the 2 people found near the tree made a fire, and Doroshenko climbed the cedar tree and to break off the branches for the fire, and the other 4 left to go try to make a more secure shelter in the ravine where the winds and the snow couldn't get them, and they were kind of protected. The winds kind of bustled up and kind of burned their hands, and that's why, but also the hypothermia with them trying to. And then the 4 remaining members went to the ravine and huddled together in the snow shelter, but the snow shelter collapsed onto them, crushing the last 4 members. Dubinina had been crawling into the shelter when it collapsed on all of them. Soft tissue composition happens naturally, particularly in water, and that's why. And they think that's their theory, which I actually think is a very good theory.
It's not. I said it was the hum, but I was wrong. It was not. The one that I heard about that I really like is infrasound. Which,
I don't have that one, so you have to.
So infrasound is low frequency sound, and it's basically sound waves with a frequency below the lower limit of audibility. So the hearing becomes gradually less sensitive as the frequency decreases. So for humans to perceive infrasound, the sound pressure has to be sufficiently high. And it is caused by, God, what was it again? Something with the oscillation changing. So basically the wind going over the mountains can cause this infrasound phenomenon. And it is theorized that it has an effect on the brain, so it can cause you to become uncomfortable even though you don't know why, because you can't hear it. And it is said that it can cause it can cause not insanity, but
panic.
Yeah, so the test. So they've done tests of infrasound, and the test subjects had like powerful feelings of like nausea and panic and chills and dread, nervousness. It raised their heart rate. They had breathing difficulties. So this was all tested on and proven, and they theorized that this could also have happened there because it's like the wind moving over the mountaintops can produce like those low frequency waves ranging from like audible to subaudible. And if it had been that, could be that it just made them so panicky or nervous or nauseous that they just had to get out of the tent, and they were just in a panic, no cause, just cause, and they just left the tent because they were in a panic because of this infrasound. Because they never really found a reason why they left the tent. Because that was always like one of the big questions. Why did they leave the tent? Like you said, the avalanche was disproven.
Even though it's still the official cause, which is bullshit.
Even though it's still the official cause of death, which is bullshit, but it was disproven. So why did they leave the tent? What made them go outside? There was no reason for them to go outside.
My favorite theory, and I don't normally go on the government was doing something. I'm not normally on.
Is it
the military? The military testing is my favorite because I think it makes the most sense.
That's the one I'm subscribing to.
Before the wind theory, because I do think the wind theory, if it's not military testing, I do think it's the wind.
Go Swedish winds, woohoo!
Swedish wind. So military testing.
Yeah. Tell me
The
about
theory
it.
is the military was testing something out in the woods, and it caused the hikers to panic and get out of the tent. So whatever, it could be maybe they were testing the hum. Maybe they were testing bombs.
Basically, what they thought they were testing, or what they have admitted to testing at the time, were parachute bombs, which are bombs that are dropped, but explode before they hit the ground. So basically, there's no shrapnel, there's no physical damage. The damage is pure force. So that's why, when these hikers had injuries that caused, that looked like they had been hit by a truck inwardly, but they didn't have any outside signs of being hit by a truck, that could have caused it, because it was just pure shockwave, pure force that causes the
second
damage.
half. That's what happened with the second half of the group.
Exactly.
In 1990, the lead police officer, Lev Ivanov, admitted that they had reports of seeing flying spheres and they had received direct orders from high-ranking regional officials to dismiss those claims. That's also why that's a bit of the evidence for aliens, is there were spheres reported in the sky at the time that nobody was allowed to talk about. I had actually heard somewhere, I swear up and down I had heard this, but I could not find anywhere that confirmed it, that two of the bodies, the military or government actually took them before the funerals.
Were these the radioactive ones?
Yeah, because there were a couple. I found somebody who there's someone called the Curious Curator from the museumcenter.org, and she is the only person to come up with an actual reason why there was two of the bodies had radioactivity on them. And there wasn't why do you ever that's so weird. A couple of them found in the ravines. And I'm quoting from her article. What of the radioactivity? Koletev was a student of nuclear physics, and he could have come into contact with the radioactive materials. Dubinina was an engineering and economics major. There was also the fact that it was 2 months later before the bodies with radioactive traces were found, and there were several possibilities for contamination. Only beta particles were found, and they were used in product testing to determine thickness of an item, and these particles can be transferred to said item. Perhaps this was done on their clothes or a tarp of the students they were carried in. So that's the only solid, it's a horse, not a zebra thing that I've found for the radioactivity on two of the people. Otherwise, it's a big, why is there radioactivity on these dead bodies found in a ravine? Otherwise, it leads the military took those bodies to study after, when they weren't allowed to get a funeral. The military took them, but I couldn't find anywhere that confirmed that. So that is rumor until I can find somewhere that confirms that they took the bodies.
Ooh.
And
Intrigue.
Yuri Yudin, the one that turned back, is quoted as saying before his death, quote, he believed his friends saw something they shouldn't have seen and were forced at gunpoint to fabricate a scene to confuse investigators and left to die. That's what the guy who turned back said. And Dyatilov's sister, Tatiana, said that their parents believed that the military, quote, was somehow involved, unquote, in her brother's disappearance and death. That's why I subscribed to that theory. And one outlandish theory that I was so mad, there's a podcast called Astonishing Legends that did a very good long, they do so long episodes about, the Yeti. The fact that they made me think that a Yeti was responsible. I was like, I'm so mad that I'm considering this.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the pictures that you can go find, of the pictures there, because there's a lot of pictures of them just like fooling around with the camera and like doing stuff, but one of them they took is like a shadowy large figure like peeking out behind some trees and like facing them, it looks like and it looks like what you think a Yeti looks like. It looks like that. And also the blunt force trauma the second half of the group had seems like something big hit them, so it's possible something that we don't really understand happened to those bodies, and they like a Yeti. I do. Astonishing Legends has a great episode, or probably two, about knowing them about this. They have super in-depth research because they have like a research team.
You do not. Have just you in the middle of a pandemic doing the best you can.
That episode was before 2019, so they don't have the katabatic wind theory in it. So just as a heads up. But I do think that's my new favorite. I used the Wikipedia article. There's Altus Obscura has a dial-up pass incident.
Is it Atlas Obscura? Because that's a good one.
Atlas Obscura. BBC has a Mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. Museumcurator.org, The Curious Curator, The Mysteries Revealed. Interesting Engineering, Wikipedia, and rferl.org, Russian Investigators Reopen Mysteries. Dial-up Pass. That's it, I'm done.
Wow. It's so scary. Great job. I think it's so scary. The first time I heard about it, I don't know, it just shakes my core.
Like,
it's so disturbing.
Happen?
Yeah.
Because once you take out the possibility that it was, they were just some dumb kids, then it turns but then something weird happened. What's the weird thing that happened? And what causes a car crash but doesn't look like a car crash? It might be I still think the military had something to do with it.
Oh, that's absolutely. That's the theory I'm going for as well. Especially if you know the way Russia is. Yeah, I mean...
They still deny that more than 30 people died in the aftermath of the Chernobyl accident. Yeah. They say it wasn't an accident. It was a American CIA agent that did stuff, and then that only 30 people died. So they do like to cover up things.
Russia, man.
Such a weird.
But yeah, that's a good one. That's a spoopy one. I like it. Because that was the whole thing. Like, why did they leave the tent?
Mm-hmm. What made these not dumb people leave the tent?
Yeah, they did a dumb thing, even though they were experienced and not dumb.
But they're not. They didn't do a dumb thing. Like, they probably. I'm just gonna stay with something like they panicked. They panicked because of something, and panic is. It's not reasonable, but it's not dumb. It's just true. You know.
Oh yeah, no,
yeah. It's just so weird.
It's so spooky when I think about it. It's so cool. Okay,
and that's the thing with most of these cases. Like, there's like some weird shit happening, and we can't figure it out. And the fact that you can't figure it out, that there are so many possible explanations, but no certain explanation, is just so frustrating, and you just want to know what happens.
How many people like. The poor people, because I was still when I worked at that concert venue, the poor people who had to stand next to me, and I was just like, do you just want to hear about the Dyatlov Pass incident? I think I called my dad. I was like, do you know about this? Because you were alive during this time. Do you know about this? And then Also, that also happened with the Astonishing Legends. They had a Black-Eyed Kids episode.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
The
yeah.
Black-Eyed
That was, like-
Kids. Those are spooky.
Also,
Spooky.
before Eddie, we talk about it, the more you know about the Black-Eyed Kids, the more likely you are to see them. So, like, if you believe in that stuff, don't look them up. But Astonishing
Nope.
Legends didn't say that until the end of the fucking episode.
Oh,
I was
fuck
like,
you.
what? I was like, this is not okay.
Are you not supposed to look it up? Because I'm gonna look it up right now.
You're more likely to encounter them.
There was also a legend of, I'm not going to go into detail about it because you don't want to know it, but that's basically like, if you are aware of this person that the legend is about, you will be visited by them. They'll come after you.
Yep.
And I was listening to this podcast and I said at the end, and I was like, well, thanks for that.
It's like that
should open the be like, by the way, if you don't want to be spooked and you don't think, so Astonishing Legends is my go-to. They do tend to go too long sometimes. Like, sometimes, like, you don't need to investigate every angle. It's okay, guys. Like, you don't need to talk for 20 minutes about every option. It's fine. But every option is well researched, and they, like, read books and stuff for each topic. It's very well done.
Now, Googling the Dyatlov Pass, I see a Swedish newspaper had covered it. That what was it really that happened? Now, two from the city, Linköping, is going to travel there.
They did,
and they basically solved it. I'm gonna stay with that one because I trust my country.
Question. But that was mine, and then
I love it. It's spooky.
Ava, you have one?
Do a story. What are you going to tell us, love?
I am going to tell you something that also involves missing people and snow. But it is not set in Russia. It is set in good old US of A.
She picked the one with the easier pronounced name, so I probably should have done that.
Yep.
I didn't think mine through. I apologize.
More specifically, it is set in Yuba County, California, because this is the story of the Yuba County Five.
I've never heard this story before, so
I didn't either until I listened to a podcast episode where they covered Dyatlov Pass and the Yuba County Five. Now, who were the Yuba County Five? The Yuba County Five were Jack Madruga, Ted Weiher, 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 Jack Hewitt, Bill Sterling, and Gary Mathias.
Oh man, I can pronounce all those names. God damn it.
So I got a lot of my information from an article on sackbee.com. And that article called Madruga, Weiher, Hewitt, and Sterling, the four studs of the Yuba County Special Needs Community. Not sure how great that is, but whatever. So these were four individuals with an intellectual disability. And that had been basically identified in their childhoods, with Bill Sterling even spending most of his childhood in the Napa State Hospital, which was then known, because this was the 70s, mind you, it was then known as the Napa Insane Asylum. So I think that tells you enough about how people with disabilities were treated back in the day.
Great.
Now, Gary Mathias, however, he was not intellectually disabled. He first ended up in a psychiatric ward in his sophomore year due to according to his parents, bad hallucinogenic trip. And in the early 1970s, he was in the U.S. Army, and he consistently used drugs. He did earn a sharpshooting medal, but his Army career ended with an AWOL arrest and eventually with a medical discharge for paranoid schizophrenia. He got diagnosed and then received medication for his condition, which is, I mean, it's an illness like any other, and if treated, can be lived with. So, good on him for getting help.
Yes.
Now, despite the differences, these young men, all five of them, were the best of friends, and they had a love of sports, and they played basketball together as the Gateway Gators, and they were sponsored by a local program for the mentally handicapped. So, on February 25th, The Gators were due to play their first game in a week-long tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics, for which the winners would get a free week in Los Angeles. And the night before, they decided to drive up to Chico, where they wanted to cheer on the UC Davis basketball team in an away game against Chico State.
Oh, one of my friends studied at Chico University for a semester.
Oh, cool.
So I know that place from.
So...
You're like, I am knowledgeable.
I know the thing. So out of the 5 of them, only Madruga and Matthias had a driver's license, and Madruga drove the group about 80 kilometers, 50 miles, north to Chico in his turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego. Now, the temperatures in the upper Sacramento Valley that year in February were cool, so they only wore light jackets. After the game, they went to Bears Market in downtown Chico, which was close to the campus, and they loaded up on snacks and cartons of milk for the ride back, got back into Madruga's car, and left. And they were never seen alive again.
Twist. I did not see that coming.
The car was eventually found on February 28th along the Oroville-Quincy Road in the Plumas National Forest. It was definitely their car, as it was filled with wrappers and empty cartons of milk that they had purchased, and the program for the basketball game they had attended was also in the car. Nothing weird there. What was weird, however, was that the car was found 70 miles or 110 kilometers from Chico, far off any direct route to Yuba City or Marysville. None of the boys' families could fathom why they would take a long and winding road up a mountain into a forest in the dark, especially since they were not dressed for cold weather. This mountain was used for skiing, so it was significantly colder there than where they had originally gone to the game. The families also confirmed that these were indoor boys. They were not outdoor boys. They did not enjoy outdoor activities. So why did they drive up a snowy mountain 70 miles east of where they were going?
Also, why drive? Oh.
It was very long. It was a very long way. So similarly, the police couldn't figure out why they had abandoned the car. They had reached an elevation of 1,300 meters, which is 4,400 feet. About where the snow line was at the time of year, so just short of where the road was closed for the winter. Now, the car had become stuck in some snowdrifts, and there was evidence that the wheels had spun in an attempt to get out of it, but the police noted that the snow was not so deep that 5 healthy young men would not have been able to push it out.
Right.
The keys were also missing, suggesting at first that the car had been abandoned because it might not have been functioning properly, with the intention of returning later with help. But the police managed to successfully hotwire the car. It started immediately, and the gas tank was a quarter full. So there were a lot of questions that they did not have answers to, and they would have more. So many more questions. So police towed the car back to the station for more thorough examination, and the Montego's undercarriage had no dents, no gouges, not even mud scrapes, not even on its low-hanging muffler. So they drove this a long distance up a mountain road with a lot of bumps and ruts, and there was no damage. So either the driver had been very, very careful, or it was driven by someone who was familiar with the road. A familiarity that Madruga was not known to have. Nor, his family said, would Madruga had let someone else drive. But the car was also unlocked and had a window roll down when it was found, and they also said that it was unlike him to leave the car unsecured. There were efforts to search the vicinity, but those were hampered by severe snowstorms that day. And 2 days later, after snow searchers in snowcats, those snowmobiles, nearly got themselves lost, the further efforts were called off due to the weather. So no trace of the men was found other than the car. There were, however, some sightings. So after media coverage of the disappearance, there were a few sightings of the boys, but only 2 really stood out to investigators. And the first one was by Joseph Shones. He was from Sacramento, and he told police he had wound up spending the night of February 24th on the 25th near where the Montego was found, because he'd driven up there because they had a cabin there. And he wanted to check the snowpack before he went on a weekend ski trip with his family. At 5:30 p.m., about 46 meters or 150 feet up the road, he too had gotten stuck in the snow. And in the process of trying to get it free, he realized he was beginning to experience the early symptoms of a heart attack.
Oh no.
So
That's
he
not
was
good.
pushing that car out of the snow, realized, oh shit, my ticker, and he went back in the car and kept the engine running to try and keep warm. So he spent 6 hours in that car experiencing severe pain when all of a sudden he saw headlights coming up behind him. He looked out and he saw a car parked behind with the headlights on, with what he says was a group of people around it, one of which seemed to him to be a woman holding a baby.
What?
He called to them for help, but they stopped talking and turned their headlights out.
What?
Spooky.
I'm spooked.
Yeah. Later, he saw more lights from behind him. This time, flashlights. He called out again, and those also went out.
No.
After that, Schoen said at first he recalled a pickup truck parking about 20 feet behind him briefly, and then continuing on down the road. So later he clarified to police that he couldn't be sure of that, since at the time he was almost delirious from the pain he was in, because, he was having a heart attack.
Mm.
And after his car ran out of gas in the early morning hours, his pain had subsided enough for him to walk 8 miles, 13 kilometers, down the road to a lodge where the manager drove him back home. And that's when they passed the abandoned Montego at the point where he had recalled hearing the voices originate from. Doctors did indeed confirm he had experienced a mild heart attack. So
Could he have been hallucinating while on those doing that, experiencing that?
I don't think hallucinations are part of having a heart attack, but
that's true.
I mean, that's what they had. Now, Ted Ware's mother said that ignoring someone's pleas for help was very not like her son. If he had been there, he definitely would have helped. He wouldn't have ignored it, because she recalled how he and Sterling had helped someone they knew get to the hospital after overdosing on Valium. So Ware was a very helpful young lad, and if someone had called out for help, he would have helped. Then there was also a report from a woman from Brownsville. She worked at a store there, which is about 30 miles or 48 kilometers from the spot where the car had been abandoned, which they could have reached if they had they continued down the road from where they left the car. Now, on March 3rd, the woman who saw flyers with the men's pictures on it, she told deputies that the 4 of them had stopped at her store in a red pickup truck 2 days after the disappearance, and the store owner corroborated her account. She said she identified the men immediately, that they were out of the area. She basically said them boys not from around here, due to their big eyes and facial expressions. I mean, sure.
The world hasn't gotten them down yet. They don't belong here.
Apparently not. They're too innocent. 2 of the men, whom she identified as Hewitt and Sterling, were in the phone booth outside, while the other 2 went inside. Police said she was a credible witness, and they took her account seriously. I'm just gonna have a little sip.
Drink.
Okay.
Shots.
Sorry, my cat is being a pain in the ass again. Move. Now, additional detail came from the store owner. He told investigators that the men whom he believed to be Ware and Hewitt, so Ted and Jackie, came in and bought burritos, chocolate milk, and soft drinks. Ware's brother told the Los Angeles Times that while driving to Brownsville in a different car in apparent ignorance of the basketball game seemed completely out of character for them. The owner's description of the men's behavior seemed consistent with them, though, as Ware would eat anything he could get his hands on and was often accompanied by Jackie Hewitt, more than any of the other 4. They said that Jackie looked up to Ted and that he was sort of like his shadow. However, Jackie Hewitt's brother, said that Jackie hated using telephones to the point that he would handle calls for his brother from the other men in the group. And when Jackie and Ted were together and Jackie needed to make a phone call, Ted would actually dial the phone for him. So, yeah. Why was he making a call?
So weird.
Yeah. So they went missing in February, and they weren't really discovered until June. On June 4th, most of the higher elevation snow had melted, and a group of motorcyclists went to a trailer maintained by the Forest Service at a campsite off the road about 19.4 miles or 31.2 kilometers from where the Montego, the car, had been found. A front window of the trailer had been broken, and when they opened the door, they were overcome by the odor of what turned out to be a decaying body inside.
No!
It was later identified as Ted Weir.
Ooh.
So searchers returned to Plumas National Forest. They followed the road between the trailer and the site of the Montego. The next day, June 5th, they found remains that were later identified as Madruga and Sterling on opposite sides of the road, 11.4 miles or 18.3 kilometers from where the car had been.
That's so far away, though.
It is.
Yeah. Madruga's body had been partially consumed by scavenging animals, with only bones remained of Sterling scattered over a small area. Autopsies showed that they had both died of hypothermia, and deputies speculated that they may have succumbed to the desire for sleep, which is basically hypothermia's final stages, or at least one of them succumbed, and that the other refused to leave his side, so eventually also died of hypothermia. 2 days later, as part of one of the search parties, Jackie Hewitt's father found his son's backbone under a bush about 3.2 kilometers or 2 miles northeast of the trailer.
Ooh.
His shoes and jeans nearby helped identify the body. Yeah, he found his son's remains, which is absolutely devastating. Like, can you fucking imagine? That is your child. So terrible. And the next day, a deputy sheriff found a skull downhill from the bush about 91 meters or 300 feet away, confirmed by dental records later to also have been Jackie Hewitt's. And he was also, his cause of death was also hypothermia. In an area
great, uplifting story.
Yeah.
So happy.
It's great.
So glad we're doing this on a Saturday night.
Right? Isn't it great? So, sip. In an area to the northwest of the trailer, roughly a quarter mile, which is about 400 meters from it, searchers found 3 Forest Service blankets and a rusted flashlight by the road. It could not be determined how long those items had been there, and since Matthias had presumably not taken his medication, pictures of him were distributed to mental institutions all over California. However, no trace of him had ever been found. So,
what?
Yeah.
Who was he again? Sorry. There was so many names.
The schizophrenic one.
Oh.
Yeah. So they found 4, or at least bodies or remains of 4 of the boys, but the 5th they hadn't found. Now, I told you that Ted Weir was found in a trailer. His body was found on a bed in the trailer with 8 sheets wrapped around him, including his head.
Oh.
That was not an animal.
Nope.
The autopsy showed that he had died of a combination of starvation and hypothermia. He had lost nearly half of his 200-pound weight. And the growth of his beard suggested that he had lived as long as 13 weeks from when he had last shaved. So he was alive for 13 weeks after they went missing. His feet were badly frostbitten, almost gangrenous. On the table next to the bed that he was on were some of his personal effects, including his wallet with cash still inside, a nickel ring with Ted engraved on it, and a gold necklace that he also wore. Also on the table was a gold watch, which Weir's family said did not belong to him or any of the other boys, and a partially melted candle. He was wearing a velour shirt and lightweight pants, but his shoes could not be found.
This is very into the wild vibe.
This is the weird part. This is where we come into what the fuck territory, because
this is the weird part.
This is the weird part, because the investigators don't know how he had come to this fate, because the trailer had a fireplace, no fire had been set. There was an ample supply of matches and paperback novels that he could have used as kindling. There was heavy clothing available that could have kept them all warm, remained where it had been stored, had not been touched, and there were a dozen sea ration cans, those military rations, from a storage shed outside that had been opened and their contents had been consumed, but a locker in the same shed held even more sea rations, enough to keep all 5 men fed for a year if that had been necessary, but they had not been opened.
Whose trailer was this?
Forest Services.
Oh.
And another shed nearby held a butane tank with a valve that, had it been opened, would have fed the trailer's heating system. Although they did say that this behavior was consistent with what Weir's family members described as a lack of common sense due to his mental disability. No. He often questioned why he should stop at a stop sign, and one night he needed to be dragged out of bed while his bedroom ceiling was burning in a house fire, since he was worried about missing his job the next day if he left his bed.
Oh.
Little baby.
Yeah. It also seemed that Weir had not been alone in the trailer, and Matthias and possibly Hewitt had been there with him. Gary Matthias's tennis sneakers were in the trailer, and the sea rations had been opened with a P-38 can opener, which only Matthias or Madruga would have been familiar with from their military services. So maybe Gary Matthias, maybe his feet had also been swollen from frostbite, so he could have decided to maybe leave his shoes behind and put on Weir's shoes, who were bigger size, and venture outside with those. And the sheets all over Weir's body also suggested one of the others had been there with him, since his gangrenous feet would have been in too much pain for him to pull them over his body himself.
Oh, hypothermia is so weird. Like, it just makes you
So
do
horrible.
the exact opposite of what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, theory. There's really only one theory that makes sense and that is really out there, because, why would they drive up a mountain 70 miles east of where they were supposed to be going, disappear up a mountain? What the hell happened here? And so naturally people looked at the missing piece of this puzzle, which was Gary Matthias, because his body had never been found.
Mm-hmm.
No trace of him had ever been found. Now, a little bit of background about Gary Matthias. So I mentioned that he had been arrested for going AWOL in the Army. That was in February 1973. He was in sheriff's custody after his arrest, and he called in 2 sergeants and a deputy to his cell. When they opened his cell, he walked into the hallway stark naked and punched one of the sergeants in the face.
What?
Causing him to bleed from his mouth and nose. He tried to hit the other sergeant as well, but was then subdued. He said, and I quote, "I've been in the Army and I don't like it, and I thought if I hit a cop, maybe they'd let me out." He later received a medical discharge for his paranoid schizophrenia.
What?
Yeah. Now, that same month, apparently, he was watching TV at his cousin's house around 8:30 a.m., while his cousin's wife, who was 17 years old, the 60s,
amazing,
I guess, she'd been ill, and she had been using medication that made her a little bit groggy, and she was asleep in her bed. So Matthias got up to use the bathroom, and his cousin noticed that that bathroom break was turning out a little bit long, and he went up to check and allegedly found him straddling his wife, groping his breasts as she lay nearly motionless in her underwear, according to the case files. His cousin was like, "Yo, dude, what the fuck?" And Matthias allegedly replied that he wanted to kiss the woman. When the cousin said that he was calling 911, Matthias allegedly responded with, "Good, I want to go back to jail."
Oh, goodness.
He pleaded guilty to battery of a peace officer for the jail incident, and then a second charge of assault with intent to rape was dropped as a result of his plea deal, according to the Marysville Appeal Democrat report. Now, Yuba County Superior Court employees were still unable to find details of his sentence, and under current California law, he could have faced up to 3 years in prison if he was convicted of battery of a peace officer and 9 years for assault with intent to rape. But he was out within 9 months. 8 months. So
shocker.
he did not spend that time in jail. His next run-in with law enforcement was that December of that year, and police had evidence he visited the home of a couple he knew after shooting methamphetamines and dropping bennies, I don't know what that is, or swallowing tablets of the methamphetamine Benzedrine, according to case files. So he visited this couple's house, and he was apparently acting erratically, talking about how he wanted to stab a woman in the jaw. And he told their 3-year-old daughter, apparently, "I thought I'd kill you once. I guess I'll have to do it again."
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah.
But
so they kicked him out. He
Okay.
was on meth.
Yeah.
So the man and woman reportedly kicked him out of their house, and he was basically just pounding on locked doors nearby until the police arrived.
Oh, God.
The court records do not indicate he served any jail time in connection with the incident.
Who did he know?
Yeah.
Who did his daddy know?
Well,
Who was his daddy?
that's a good question. He did have other run-ins with the law. He had an arrest on suspicion of grand theft auto. He had a citation for disturbing the peace and driving without a license, where he allegedly told the arresting officers, "Fuck you cops, you all are motherfuckers."
I would too. I mean,
There were also a slew of bar fights and complaints that he was prowling at a local cemetery.
Oh.
prowling what? Prowling.
You shouldn't prowl at a cemetery.
Yeah.
That's not a good place
Now-
to prowl.
At the time of his disappearance, an investigator with the Yuba County Sheriff's Office said that Matthias was known to this department. So, yeah. Sorry, my cat is being an idiot. Stop. Okay, so... he is basically... he's a number.
Yeah.
He's a number. He'd done a lot of drugs. According to Gary Whitley, who was dating Gary Matthias' sister Sharon in 1967 and later married her, attested to that. I do have to say that when the boys went missing, Gary Whitley was divorcing Matthias' sister.
Oh.
But
Fun. What a fun
yeah.
time that must have been.
Oh, super. But Gary Whitley did spend a lot of summer afternoons near the end of high school with Matthias, drinking beer and swimming with their friends. But when the two reconnected after their military service, Whitley was in Vietnam and Matthias was in a base in Germany. He said that Matthias was largely in and out of his family home and not mentally stable. So Matthias was picked up by Stockton police in 1974 and admitted to a nearby state mental hospital. He spent 2 days there before crawling out through a drain pipe and walking and hitchhiking back to Marysville, still wearing his hospital pajamas, according to case files. So it was a daring escape, but apparently familiar. He had previously snuck out of the Letterman Army Hospital's psychiatric ward in San Francisco and later walked away from another mental health facility in 1975. In 75, with a short stint at Yuba College proving unsuccessful, he abruptly left school and moved to Oregon to stay with his grandmother. His mother and stepfather, Ida and Robert Klopf, finally reached him on the phone weeks later and pleaded with him to come back to Yuba County. Apparently, he hung up on them.
Ugh.
It was just like, nope, I'm going to stay with Grandma. They didn't hear from him again until he showed up on their doorstep 5 weeks later, ragged and filthy. He had apparently walked from Portland to Marysville, he told them, stealing milk off of porches, and eating dog food to stay alive on the 540-mile trek.
What? I'm sorry, but what does he have to live for? Why is he fighting so hard to live on dog food?
Don't know.
Son.
Later that year, a Yuba County couple woke up to find him standing in their bedroom. He had punched through the window, unlocked their front door, and was now looking for a ring to return to Satan, they said.
When a D&D quest. That's
apparently. When they asked him why he was there, he said they were in his house and he was there to collect rent.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He lost it.
Now, after that, he did straighten out. He started to consistently take his schizophrenia medication and was able to hold down a job with his stepfather's gardening business. He had no notable contact with police during the 2 years leading up to his disappearance. And his stepfather said that he had not, quote, gone haywire in private during that time. He then joined the Gateway Projects and started hanging out with Sterling, Ware, Madruga, and Hewitt a few months before the boys went missing. But even under the mellowing gaze of antipsychotic drugs such as Cogentin, Stelazine, and Prolixin, Gateway Gators basketball coach Robert Pennock told investigators he still felt like Matthias, quote, could possibly flip out at any time. Gateway has been closed for decades, and the leaders from the time are dead, leaving the question of how Matthias got involved in the first place unanswered. Jack Beecham, who's the former county sheriff of Yuba County, said he doesn't know how Matthias got into the program. Because he technically shouldn't have been there. It was a program for youth with mental disabilities, and he did not have a mental disability. He had an illness that was being treated. So, yeah, he shouldn't have been there.
So he knew someone. Like, he knew someone that got him out of all the stuff.
Must have.
Or he didn't. Or he lied when he signed up and they didn't check.
Oh. Yeah, because it was the 70s. Like, what did they check? Nothing.
Yeah. So there was an interview in 1978 with Matthias's longtime acquaintance, Janet Enzera. And Yuba County Sergeant James Black wrote that Matthias had repeatedly told Enzera of a dream where he and several other people would disappear. Enzera called Gary Matthias a very violent person, hurting several men seriously, and she said that he also hates women.
Fun.
So the other boys' parents weren't comfortable with Matthias either, even though they didn't really seem to know about his criminal record, according to Jack Beecham. He was a stronger personality, and he was the only one among them who would fight back if they were threatened. So, of the 5 missing boys, according to the case file, he would be the most likely to lead and suggest places to go or things to do. Like, the boys looked up to him. He was their leader. So, yeah, he would lead, they would follow. Sorry, my cat again. Stop it. Now, there's a quote from Beecham that says, I know parents at the time told me personally, that they had deep concerns about Gary being involved in this. They were unabashed in their opinion in telling me that. The 4 were always together. They walked a lot of places together, always together, and he just was a different personality type. He didn't meld with the other 4, according to the parents. Now, Ida Klopf had taken her children and fled her husband, Garland Matthias, when Gary was just 3 years old, making it from Yuba County to Bakersfield before calling Garland Matthias and asking him to pick them up, according to sheriff's files. She then filed a restraining order against Garland when they split up for good a couple of years later. Now, Garland Matthias, Gary Matthias' father, rarely came up in conversations with conversations that Gary Whitley had with his ex-wife Sharon, who was Gary's sister. But one day in 1987, Sharon's father showed up at her home just out of the blue. Whitley said he ate dinner with Sharon and her 2 children, who were then about 10 and 11 years old, and left the house without incident. A few days later, Garland Matthias committed suicide. Sharon Maxwell. So Sharon Maxwell Matthias, so his sister, would die of a gunshot wound to the head in 2002.
By whom?
A shot that Whitley said was self-inflicted. So she also committed suicide.
Oh no.
However, Yuba County Superior Court and the Sheriff's Office officials could not find evidence of the restraining order or Garland Matthias' cause of death. Another quote from Whitley says, "I do believe that the mental illness that Gary and my ex-wife had, they inherited from their dad. As long as Gary was on medication, he wasn't too bad. But when he thought he was okay and not doing his medication, same thing with my ex-wife Sharon. As long as she was on medication, she was doing okay." So maybe Gary Matthias was a victim of inexplicable circumstances deep in the woods, just like the 4 other boys. Maybe he chose not to take his medication that carried side effects of drowsiness, lethargy, and dizziness in light of his Special Olympics basketball game the next day, and inadvertently brought his friends out to their deaths on a schizophrenia-induced adventure. Maybe he's alive today.
Oh.
He was a fighter. That much was clear. He was willing to do whatever it took to survive. He would walk walking dozens of miles out of the snow in lightweight clothing would have been excruciating, but so likely was walking from Portland to Marysville and shimmying his way out of mental institutions. If he could do that, why wouldn't he hike up in the snow? About 3 weeks after the boys went missing, a Yuba City woman named Debbie Lynn Reese got a telephone call. When she picked up, she said hello. She heard a voice of a man on the other side who said, "I know where the missing 5 men are," and then hung up. He called back the next day, and he said, "I need help because I really hurt those guys bad." When she asked, "Who did you hurt?" he replied, "Don't play dumb with me," and hung up.
Oh.
So there was one more call the next day on March 17th where he said, "Those 5 guys are all dead." "They're all dead?" Reese asked. He repeated, "They're all dead." Then he hung up and Reese never heard from him again.
Oh no.
Now, Sheriff Beecham doesn't think that was Matthias, though, because he couldn't get his medication if he went off the grid, and he couldn't stay out of trouble without his medication. And then there were the family ties. Like, even on his long walkabouts, he always came back to his mother and stepfather's house. Beecham said, quote, "My thinking is as though, as tough as he was, he just went down in those conditions out there. That manzanita is bad stuff. I mean, it was so thick, like 8 to 10 feet high. I just think he went down and disappeared." So the shrubbery, the bushes were so thick that he just sort of disappeared. Like, quote, "No one pulled a trigger on the boys, but something or someone killed them." Asked if he thought Matthias set his brother and the others up to die, Dallas Ware replied, "That's the only thing that makes sense." Ware recalled that the hit 90s television series Unsolved Mysteries sought the involved family's permission to do an episode on the missing 5 sometime after the disappearance, and every family agreed except Matthias, even though he was still missing, according to Ware. So Matthias' surviving siblings declined to comment, and so in the article that I'm getting all this information from the SACB, they either wouldn't comment or they couldn't be reached. And Dallas Ware said, quote, "That's just suspicious. I'm not saying they knew, but, well, you can probably guess what I think." So the investigator Beecham, a lot of questions still remain in his mind about what happened on the night of February 24th, 1978, and in the weeks that followed. But he is convinced that whatever took the boys up into the woods, it was not their own doing. Quote, "They were either forced or manipulated. And where does Matthias come into that? Maybe he had nothing to do with it. We'll never know, but I think he did." And that is the story of the Yuba County 5.
That was great.
It's a real what the fuck moment.
So sad.
Mm-hmm.
It was just horrible.
Yeah, these things they're unsolved mysteries. They're not usually happy fun times.
They're not fun.
No, but there was just him finding his son's bones and
Yeah.
that they lived there for like weeks and they could
One
have
of them did.
survived.
One of them lived for 13 weeks, but they could have survived there up to a year if they had. But like you said, yeah, I mean, they were like, yeah, but if you had like, activated the propane tank or butane tank or whatever it was, I was going to be like, yeah, okay, you can say that that's pretty obvious, but like how
Yeah, no,
did
of course.
how did this thing work? Like
Yeah.
I am also not like a very technical savvy person. Like I could also stand there at looking at that tank going like, how the fuck does this function? How do I touch it without blowing shit up? You know?
Of course. It's just that they could have if they had known.
But like these were special boys. So it could be that, they just didn't know
of course
how to operate things. But
I wouldn't know either.
They said, there was plenty of kindling, there were matches, there was a fireplace, there was plenty of heavy clothing to keep them warm. Some of those sea rations had been opened. So obviously, like they said, like the two of them, Madruga and Matthias, knew how to operate that can opener to open them. They could have done that. So why eat 13 meals and then just stop? Was that the point where they said, okay, we're gonna leave Ware here, because his feet were so frostbitten that they were gangrenous, like he wouldn't have been able to walk on them. And they were like, okay, we'll leave him here in the trailer, we'll bundle him up, keep him warm, tuck him in, and then we'll go look for help. Maybe they did that. Maybe they all stayed there for 13 weeks. And then when Ted eventually died, they were like, okay, we have to go now. And they tucked him in and tried to leave. And maybe that's when Gary Matthias took his shoes, because his feet were also so frostbitten and swollen that his own shoes wouldn't have fit him anymore. So he took Ted's, who were a bigger size. There's just so many questions, man, and it is fascinating and sad. And how do these things happen? I don't know, but yeah, sad, man.
Sad as hell. I feel sad. I just feel sad now. Oh,
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It was good. You did really good.
Thank you. But yeah, I should probably cite my sources, which were basically mostly Wikipedia, and then sacb.com, which I think is the Sacramento Bee.
Oh, nice.
But I'm not sure. I hope I'm quoting this right. But yeah, it's sacb.com. It's a very interesting site with a very interesting article, and I actually learned a lot more about Gary Matthias's background, and because like the podcast that I heard this on didn't mention any of that. So before that, I didn't know. So I am now more on board with the theory that he probably took a weird left turn in his head somewhere and just led them all to their doom.
Yeah.
And he could still be alive out there.
He could. Or like they didn't want to do the episode because he had a troublesome past and they just didn't want to bring it up again, because it would make him look like he had malicious intent when he really didn't.
I don't think he had malicious intent, but like people theorized it could be, it's possible that he could have maybe stopped taking his medication. And he
that's what I'm saying too. But like,
probably not with malicious intent, but that he just had an episode, and because he was the leader, the other four just followed him.
Oh, it's just horrible.
It's sad.
I'm gonna talk about something that's not sad.
You're gonna lighten the mood a bit for us.
Yes,
which is nice.
So this isn't really like a. Well, I'm gonna talk about something that's not sad, and it's not really modern. Well, it's kind of modern, but it's a lost city.
I do like those.
Yes. So
I watched a documentary about Atlantis today, which was very good.
Yes. So the trope. This is at first I was gonna do the Bermuda Triangle, Because when I was a kid, I was really stressed about the Bermuda Triangle because I thought it was going to
Right?
be a bigger problem for me as an adult.
That and the quicksand were always brought up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I would encounter those more, but then I didn't. And then I read a little bit about the Bermuda Triangle, and it's like, I don't know. I didn't feel it. And having listening to both of you tell amazing stories, I kind of don't feel this anymore either. But
Oh
let's
no!
just. This is the story of how a city known as Thonis Heraklion had been lost for millennia and then found again. And also
Oh.
how interesting it is that this city that was so bustling and like a center point for ancient like the ancient societies and their trade and travel and stuff, that this city was just lost and forgotten about for so long. So let's just get into it. I want you to visualize. Now you are here. The year is unknown, but probably around 200 BC. You are walking
Oh.
around the city of your birth. It's a bustling day in this large trade port city. You can feel the sun on your skin. You hear the waves, the seagulls. You look down, you have several ports at your vision thingy. You strut your sandals, walking across beautiful bridges, and you see the city is connected by bridges and stuff. And you look towards the statue of Happy, which is HIPY. It's the let's see. Sorry. So the statue of Happy, what is he? A 16 feet high statue that is guarding your city and the entrance to the River Nile from the Mediterranean. And it feels like it's going to be a great day, a best day, a day like many others, until you hear a deep murmur coming from below the boiling sea. It's not boiling, but like the sea. And then suddenly, you have felt this before though, because this place has been shook by earthquakes many a times, but this time it's different. Suddenly, the 16 feet or 5.4 meters high statue of Happy falls into the sea,
Ooh.
and little by little, the rest of your city is swallowed by the ocean, to be forgotten for over 1,000 years. And then I'm just gonna set the scene with that little, Anyway, so
that was the prequel.
Jesus, can you imagine?
The cold
You
open.
go on a trip or a trade trip or whatever, and you come back, and where your city is supposed to be, there's just water.
Yeah, that's
you're like, did I take a wrong turn? Was I supposed to take the left turn in Albuquerque? I'm pretty sure my house is supposed to be here, but it's not.
Right? Also,
fuck me.
Very Roanoke that you would go away, come back, and it's gone.
Yeah.
There's not even a non-distinguishable note that I can't figure out.
Croatoan.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's not even that. It's just gone. It's gone. It's like, yeah. So, the city of Thonis Heraklion had been lost and forgotten for almost since 2000 BC, 200 BC. So that's like 2,000 years. It wasn't until the French maritime archaeologist Frank Guido in 2000s did a diving expedition of the Bay of Aboukir. It's outside the coast of Egypt. And he made a astonishing discovery. Guido partnered with Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, and they have since then pulled up millennia of forgotten knowledge. A whole ass city, I put in my script.
Holy shit.
So, Thonis, which is the Egypt name for the city, and I will get into why it has two different names here, or why it is a hyphen name.
Ooh.
So, it was located at the canopic mouth. It's the entrance to the Nile, the beginning of the Nile Delta. It's not very far from the city of Alexandria, and it was built on adjoining islands. intersected by canal with several harbors and anchorage. It is said that almost every trading merchant in Europe around 500 BC would have known about this city, and you would have traded with that city or wanted to trade, because it was the statue Happy was like the guardian of the Nile coming from the Mediterranean. The city was a bustling cosmopolitan gateway connecting the River Nile to the Mediterranean, and then also ancient Egypt's main port to international trade. And then some of the architecture, like the city is described as part marshland and part urban city, crisscrossed by a network of canals and dotted with harbors, wharves, temples, and tower houses, all joined together by a network of ferries, bridges, pontoons. It was controlled most. The city controlled most of the maritime traffic coming into Egypt from the Mediterranean, and it sounds dreamy as hell, like a very more open Venice almost. Like it has a lot of, you can go on boats to get to different parts of the city that is joined by these canals that then go out into the Nile and the Mediterranean. So it was it harbored like thousands of people. And if it, this is just my own speculation, but if it were here today, it would probably be a spot for rich Westerners to go on vacation.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. And on the vintagenews.com, which is the website where I got some of the information, you can see they did some mock-up images, and it looks really beautiful. They did some recreations of how they thought it would have looked with all the joint canals and stuff, and it's just hella pretty.
You can also see really nice, some really nice pictures of it if you play Assassin's Creed Origins.
Ooh,
because it was a spot there where you could go with Bayek, where he met Cleopatra and thwarted an assassination attempt on her life.
Oh my god, yes, because they had statues of Cleopatra the Third and stuff. Everything was just sunken down. Yep. So what's interesting about how it was just forgotten for this long, or like what makes it even weirder, is it was mentioned by several ancient historians like Herodotus, which is like the founder of history, and also the historian Herodotus. Several times. It was also, let's see here, it was also part of a legend that Paris and Helen of Troy sought shelter in the city before the Trojan War began, that they sought refuge from the jealous Menelaus after Paris kidnapped Helen of Troy. Or, they left together and she was all consent and all that. But, there's different stories. But they right, they sought refuge there from the jealous Menelaus. There's also a story that it was actually Helen and Menelaus together that stayed there, and that they met up with a ancient noble Egyptian called Thon and his wife Polydamna. So there's a little bit of discrepancy in the legends, but it's said that, like, also it was the gateway, as I said before, from Egypt and most of that part of Africa into the Mediterranean and Europe at that time. So let's talk a little bit about what they found and what made it so interesting.
Yes.
Yes. So it's not so much a mystery how it sank, because it is presumed that it sunk little by little, because it was founded on a riverbed covered in sand. And also the fact that it had been, let's see where I put that. I put it somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to my notes.
No, I did such good notes. I'm so sorry. No, but because it was like on, like the soil around the Nile is very prone to floods and earthquakes, and they have like the sediment was very soft, so it would probably have been sinking for a long time. But then like through the course of time, that just got too much, and but like Still, a whole city lost. A whole big-ass city. Cosmopolitan and all. Yeah, just poof. And then no one cared about it for so long. It's just weird.
But we can't go there anymore, so let's just move on.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to talk a little bit about why they forgot about it too.
If people went there and suddenly found no city, I'm pretty sure they would just go, well, a whole ass city doesn't just disappear. Maybe we misplaced it. I don't know. Maybe it was a mass hallucination. It used to be there. It's not there anymore. I'm sure something explainable happened here.
Or if
something explainable did happen.
Or if Helen of Troy saw it, maybe just because the war happened directly after it, they were like, "Oh, what happened to that city? Oh, I don't know.
War happened here." Yeah. Let's see. Also, the first thing they found when diving here was there was a wall from a temple, but also this statue, Happy. It's I don't know if it's said happy. If you say happy, maybe happy. I'm sorry. I don't know.
How do you spell it?
Happy.
Happy.
Happy?
Yeah.
Happy? Hoppy.
Hoppy?
It's gonna be half the episode. Is
I'm gonna say yeah. I gotta say happy because we gotta be happy. It's sad.
Yeah.
So they thought it was a rock, and they just wanted to let's look at this little rock. But it was the head of this, as I said before, 16 feet statue. And then they found the rest of him, all in there, intact, basically together.
Huh.
Happy or Happy was an ancient god of fertility, and I took some information from The Guardian, and they put it very beautifully like this. He stood for centuries at the very edge of ancient Egypt, gazing down imperiously upon the trading ships as they blew from the Mediterranean. His name was Happy, god of fertility, lord of the river, life-giving steward of its floods. And on his plinth at the western mouth of the Nile, a massive red granite gate keep to one of the greatest port cities on earth. So that gives a little bit of this was a huge city, and it was important, and then it was just sunken and it was forgotten. Then the temple wall that they also found, that is one big clue or interesting fact about this city, is that the history about Thonis and Heraklion is, it was called Thonis and Heraklion before because they thought it was two different cities, Thonis being the Egyptian name and Heraklion being the Greek name. But during these findings, it stood very clear that this was a whole, just a single city, and it was due to the rich interconnected relationship between Greek and Egypt culture that the name Thonis Heraklion came to be. So I'm going to get back to the wall a little bit later. But they also found Hellenic helmets nestled in the seabed alongside their Egyptian counterparts, as were Cypriot statuettes and incense burners, Athenian perfume bottles, and ancient anchors from Greek ships. There were several other things that point to the cross-cultural pollination which makes the city of Thonis Heraklion so interesting. And here is the first thing they found by the French Frank Guidiot was a 500-foot-long wall of a temple, as well as a gold plaque that was inscribed with Greek letters, signifying that King Ptolemy III had erected the temple dedicated to Heracles, or as we might know him, Hercules. Yes.
Hercules.
Yeah, see, the fact that they found Hellenic helmets and Athenian perfume bottles and other things. They had a lot of coins from Byzantium and other parts. It was they had relationships.
Very bustling trade route, probably.
Yeah.
And
right on the water like that. Yeah.
Right at the corner, at the just getting out there into the world. So they found also steles, tall inscribed pillars or tablets, which usually indicates either direction, news of a pharaoh's decree, or oaths by the gods, made in a pink granite that was very, very particular for this city. They had a lot of pink granite everywhere into temples and buildings and stuff like that. And these steles were inscribed in both Greek and Egyptian writings, and also like attesting to the idea that the two countries shared ideologies as well as trade. So it was very interconnected between Egypt and Greece, which is why the name, it was thought to be two different cities, but it was just the same city, and they just had a really great relationship, which was nice. There's the shared mythology that took place in Thonis Heraklion. Historian Herodotus mentioned in his writing the story of a temple built on the same spot where the son of Zeus, Heracles or Hercules, landed in Egypt. The story of Heracles visiting the city was the result of the Greek calling the city by the Greek name Heraklion rather than the Egypt name Thonis. So like a myth just like built that city together. And one other reason for the interconnected and like what did he call it? The cross pollination of cultures, as they call it, was Alexander with a tiny dick complex, as you may know him, Alexander the Great. But it's a lot of small dick energy.
All right,
Yeah.
Colin Farrell.
Yes. Ugh, disgusting. Like because he like accomplished something that wasn't really that hadn't happened that much before. Like he conquered his way through Greece and Egypt and Persia and India, and all of these different cultures came together, blended together, and is now known as Hellenistic culture. So that was also a big part of why this island or city was so. It wasn't that weird that it was so shared between the Egypt and Greek like ideologies and things because of Alexander and his train of doing stuff, crusades through all of the ancient
And
worlds.
Alexander and his tiny, tiny penis.
Yeah, in like the year of 340 BC and onwards, that he did all of that. It's not so weird. This wasn't a really that strange occurrence. But it's interesting today because today we're like, what nationality? That's just you and no one else. And then sorry, and so which the Hellenistic culture is a testament to ancient cultures cross-pollinating like this, making it not so surprising that there are findings of both Greek and Egyptian remnants in Thonis Heraklion. But then to also a little bit point back to why I thought this was so interesting is it's not so much a mystery or a unique happening. It's a testament of fragility and the fact that humans living on this planet are not untouchable nor unforgettable. Like a great city like Thonis can crumble to the deepest seas and remain forgotten for over a millennia before it's rediscovered. And a reason probably why this city also became forgotten is because by the 2nd century BC, Thonis Heraklion's era of pomp and prestige was already fading. Further along the coast, a new metropolis, known as the city of Alexandria, was rapidly establishing itself as Egypt.
I heard they had an amazing library.
They sure did.
Wah, wah, wah.
Right? So while that was being built up and established as a great port into Egypt's culture, and also this is also because it's called Alexandria because of Alexander the Tiny Dick. So,
Yep.
so while the hybrid foundation of the land and water of which Thonis Heraklion was built had begun to feel less secure, it wasn't a single natural disaster, an earthquake, tsunami, rising sea levels, or subsidence that doomed the city, but a combination of them all. And together with Alexandria's rise and claim to fame, the city was kind of forgotten about for 2,000 years before, by chance, a French, what's it called, maritime archaeologist found something he thought was a rock. And that was a very quick and sad story of the city of Thonis Heraklion.
But they were eventually, like, the city was eventually found. Like, it's kind of, like, happy that we came around and we did. Not everything stays lost forever. You will find that thing that you lost in your room eventually. Just
Eventually. I mean, we lost the whole city, but we found it again. Just
That
in
is the
2,000
reason.
years.
That is the reason why I still hold on to so many lone socks, because I am convinced that one day I will find the second one and have a matching pair again. So I basically have a drawer full of single socks.
Me
have
too.
a drawer full of lost cities that will eventually be found.
Aw. Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting because it was lost, and because we had all of these known historians, all of these known legends about it, and yet we forgot about it. And so much misconception about it being two cities, because today we just can't think that two different nations would ever have that good a relationship, actually.
Get along?
What is that? And also, how just circumstance can really affect how history is written about stuff. And seeing the rise in climate change, people having to leave their cities, we're not untouchable. It's sad. But happy is there now.
But have you heard of the land of Punt, since we're talking about lost kingdoms?
No?
Okay, so the land of Punt was a trading partner of ancient Egypt. They produced and exported gold, aromatic resins, blackwood, ebony, ivory, wild animals, and they were really, really close with Egypt. The Egyptians loved Punt. There are records everywhere, in Egyptian records, there are all mentions of the land of Punt, yet nobody knows where it was. Because everyone in Egypt knew Punt. Punt? Oh yeah, we know Punt. They're great. We love Punt. We don't need to write down where Punt was because everybody knows where Punt is. Why would we need to write it down? And now nobody knows where Punt is. They know there was a land of Punt, but nobody knows where. It could either be in the Horn of Africa or the Arabian Peninsula. So, could be anywhere. Be anywhere.
Keep your enemies close and your friends mysterious, so no one can find them.
Right. Nobody else can know where Punt is. Only we can know where Punt is. But I saw this come by on not a Reddit post, a Tumblr post about how you really should be specific when you write things down.
Yes.
Because they only recently discovered the secret recipe to the Roman concrete that was resistant to seawater.
Listen, Reddit can be a cesspool, but it's also full of very interesting information of people
this
is the only time I can talk about this. I'm going to talk about it.
It was so interesting, though. It was so interesting, though, because they were for years it's been written down like this, but it said add water, but you were supposed to add seawater. But the Romans didn't specify that it was seawater because they knew that it was supposed to be seawater. It's like how when we bake a cake, it says use eggs. But if thousands of years later, some ancient, future peoples find that and say, use one egg, a chicken egg?
Ooh, what kind of egg?
But
is it an ostrich egg? A sparrow egg? What egg are we supposed to use? We know it's supposed to be a chicken egg, but that knowledge may be lost thousands of years down the road. Milk. We know it's cow milk, but it could be any type of milk.
This is almost going to be, 10 minutes away from 2 hours, so I am going to hold.
Yeah. I'm just going to cite my sources, real quick.
Yes, do that, please.
I got Wikipedia, of course. I got ScienceAlert.com by David Neal. I got The Guardian, Lost Cities by Jack Schenker. I got TheVintageNews.com by Ian Harvey and Daily.gstore.org. All you students know what I'm talking about, by James MacDonald. And that was the short and happy talk about the Lost Cities.
That was lovely. That was really nice after all the depressing stories that me and Caitlin came up with.
Sorry.
Right? No, but that's okay. I thought it was fun to listen to. I felt like I was
definitely
my favorite murder. And if you want more mysteries, watch BuzzFeed Unsolved Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And also
there's also a podcast podcast called Unsolved Mysteries, True Crime Stories, and it's also very good.
They have,
and you like Brews and Views. That's Brews and
Booze and Brews.
Yeah, that's the one you like.
Yeah, I got my story from Booze and Brews. That's where I first heard about it, because they did one about Unsolved Mysteries where they covered, I think Vanessa covered Dyatlov Pass and Melissa covered the Yuba County Five.
Woo.
That's where I first heard about it, and it's so fascinating.
And mine was
If you're Swedish.
Astonishing.
Sorry.
Mine was Astonishing. Oh, so you can go.
No, if you're Swedish, listen to Creepypodden because it's great. Also, lore if you like a man with a very soothing voice to tell you about stuff that happened in America.
He's somebody who I have to speed up a lot because he talks very slow.
Oh, I think it's so nice.
It can be soothing, but like because I've listened to everything else so fast, and like I am now aware of how slow you talk.
Ah, the fact that you speed up podcasts so much makes me, I don't know, how is your brain doing? It's all that coffee.
I recently started listening to Morbid, and they also covered the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Morbid's on my list to listen to.
It's good. I'm really getting into it. They also did a my cat bumping the microphone. They also did a mini Morbid episode where Elena, who is an autopsy technician, talked about body farms, and it's super interesting.
Oh, we talked about this on our stream.
Yes, we did. We did do that.
And if you guys have anything like something you think you would like to hear us cover, like we don't have any barriers for the bonus episodes. So if you like somebody mentioned something in an episode, you're like, I want more of that, and we can try to do an episode on that. These are for you. We can try to do.
Yes. If you want to hear us talk more about true crime and murder and mysteries, please let us know, because we love doing it. So if you guys want us to do it, that's a great excuse for us to do it.
You want to hear us talk about Digimon? We can talk about Digimon. You want an anime episode? We can do that. We can.
Yes. Onegai senpai.
I want to talk about the Somerton Man. So if you want to hear me talk about the Somerton Man, I will gladly talk about Tomon Shud so long.
I almost thought about doing a double, instead of Dyatlov Pass, doing a double feature of rich white women going missing, but probably the most boring answer is what happened, but it's more fun to talk about the other options, which would have been Anastasia and Amelia Earhart.
Ooh.
That was my other option, was doing a combo of both of those.
That's still an option, though. If you guys want to hear it, we can do it. I, for one, would love to hear Caitlin talk about Anastasia and Amelia Earhart. So, yeah.
And I can
let us know
about more found cities.
Yes, please.
My only trope.
I want to hear Julia talk about history more. I could personally talk about dead people and murder for so long. So if this is something you would love to hear from us, let us know.
And thank you for listening and being our patrons. We love you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Merry
and I'm gonna have to call it here because my cat is just it's treat time, so I have to feed the beast. Okay. But this was super fun, and I want to do it again. But thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoy this, and talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Buddies. Dag dag.